Hey guys, we have the one and only
Maserati MC20.
We are going to check out why this MC20 is or isn't worth $300,000. Check out its interesting bits and pieces and experience my reaction as we take a tour of this thing. So this is Maserati's first mid-engine supercar in about 40 years. They've had all this time to think about it. Let's see if they came up with something good. So the Maserati MC20 start at about $215,000, and this one is optioned to over $300,000. This one is the Coupe Notte edition, which essentially means that it's blacked out with a couple extra bits around it. And this is one of 20 in the US and one of 50 ever made. The Coupe Notte has the same engine, same horsepower, 0 to 60, and top speed as a regular MC20. It just happens to be over $30,000 more than a regular one for essentially just a blacked out theme. And for that money, you could option an MC20 with carbon ceramic brakes, upgraded exhaust, a bunch of carbon fiber bits, and funny enough, the black paint job is a free option. And starting off with the exterior of the MC20, this has a really sleek and supercar look to it for sure. And I especially love the matte black paint on this. I think it looks super menacing and makes this car look even faster and cooler than it already is. We have our two very big Maserati badges right here, especially the big fork down there. And as I like to call it, the Maserati mouth design that you see on all of the Maserati models. Kind of reminds me of the little emoji that goes and then behind the badges here we have a bunch of open air vents for aerodynamic, of course. And the name MC20, what do you think it stands for? It stands for Maserati Corsa. 20 was the year that this car came out, like 2020, but what if you get a 2024? They still stamp it with a 20. What the heck, Maserati? You couldn't come up with something better than that? Comment below what you think they should have named this thing, because anything could be better than that. And just another thing to touch on, I really don't know why they just gave you steel brakes on this car. Like, it is over $300,000. One of 20 in the US. They could have at least given you some carbon ceramics for this thing. Moving along the side of this MC20, you have a very low to the ground, long supercar look. It ends with some really big wheel wells back there, making it just look a little bit more menacing going down the road. We have a few key details along the sides here. One, you have your mono wiper, one wiper for this entire big windshield here. You have your turning signals on the side right over there. And something I can't stop seeing about this car is that they use the same mirrors on the Ferrari 458, so they took that a little bit from them. And then we have our door handles right here. There's a little mechanism you push up. They have butterfly doors, which is super cool. And then we have this actual air vent that is open back here for more cooling for your engine bay. We have another Maserati fork here, if you didn't know you had a Maserati at this point. And then we have our gas cap right here, which you're going to kind of have to do a wheelie out of so that you don't drip any gas down here in your air vents. Moving on to the rear end of this car here. One thing I noticed and that I love is that you can see your motor through the back here, like a few other cars that I have reviewed. And they have their little fork trident logo in the glass piece back here to give you another hint you have a Maserati, of course. And then moving down, we have our rear view mirror camera right here. We have our third brake light, which looks a little cheap. It could have been like a nice little LED, but nonetheless. And then you have another camera right here, which is actually your backup camera. And then you have this really nice carbon diffuser that you get with a Coupe Notte package. And I really like that the exhaust is more towards the middle, almost more supercar rather than being on the ends back there. They really did good with these taillights. It's super cool when it's lit up. It's like a nice little LED design. And to get into the little trunk that you do have, you just press this little button here, come over here, and you lift up And there you go. There's your whole motor and this little baby trunk back here for anything that you just want to stick in here. And a few things about this trunk area. I mean, it is a little deep. It goes up to about my elbow. And if you ever find yourself stuck in the trunk of an MC20, you have a little kidnap button right there. And then we have a forged carbon fiber whole trunk piece here that lifts up. We have our oil right there behind our motor and our coolant right here. Now let's talk about this engine. This is a twin turbo V6 making 620 horsepower with an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. So this car is rear wheel drive and it sprints to 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds with a top speed of 202 miles an hour. And it's crazy how they have just absolutely shoved this motor down in here. Like, honestly, it's so far down compared to others that I've seen like this. Now, let's give it a listen. I cannot actually believe the sound that just came out of this car. Like, it sounds so good. Very throaty and like almost a little gurgle in there. It sounds nice. And to get into this frunk here, yes, this car has a frunk. There's a little lever underneath your dash area, kind of far in there to be honest. And then you just pull that. You push to the left a little hard, and you have your little tiniest front trunk I've ever seen. This is so funny. But in here you have a few things. You have a little light, a little 12-volt, this net to hold all your small items, and something I've never seen. You can keep up with your air vent quality right here because that is probably the easiest little air filter to change that I've ever seen. And just to reiterate the fact of how small this is, like, I don't even know why it's here, but you really can't fit that many items in here. Like, it isn't even, it's like a little past my wrist depth. I don't know what you're putting in here, honestly. Maybe a manual or something for your car, but next to that, we have the little tiniest windshield washer fluid fill up. I guess you could keep your funnel in here for when you need to fill up your windshield washer fluid because that's so small. You're going to be spilling that everywhere to fill it up. And then once again, we have the forged carbon fiber piece that pops up as your frunk. And a few things you get with the MC20 in this little container here. You get an air compressor kit. You get your little tow hook, and conveniently, you get a funnel. You've got to go check out me on my socials. I love checking out cars on the side, but I post all of my best content in the link below. Plus, you get to see this awesome review of this Porsche Taycan. Now, getting into the MC20, you just push up, and here we go. We have our awesome forged carbon butterfly doors inviting you in to the MC20. Now, moving into the interior of the MC20 here. First impressions, honestly, it reminds me a little bit of a Ferrari. Just a little, because the dash just seems so similar, and it obviously has its Italian heritage that it had to pull in here a little bit. But it has very tight stitching. I really like the carbon bits that is inside this car, how this whole little center console piece is, how the steering wheel is with some Alcantara, but I do see this getting like matted if your hands are like sweaty or you use it a lot, you know, so it might not last long over time. And then we have our digital gauge cluster here, and then our little tiny kind of like infotainment screen. It honestly just reminds me of like a little kid's tablet or something. Like, for the price of this car, I feel like maybe they could have turned it the other way and made it just a little bit bigger, but I feel like it's just so small for this area. But this interior kind of reminds me of like Ford GT a little bit because it has like the sleek little center console with just a few buttons here. We have like our drive button right there. We have a reverse right there. And then we have our window switches right here in the middle, which is pretty cool. And then we have a volume knob and I guess your radio controls right there. And this is the key of the MC20. It's actually pretty heavy compared to most keys that I see. It's leather wrapped and it does have like some nice metal on the side here. Pretty big and bulky too, honestly. And the doors right here, to close them, you just pull on this little loop there, and it's actually pretty heavy for it being a forged carbon door. And to get out, this is the little button you press and you just hold it a little bit and then it goes up the rest of the way for you. And thanks so much to Maserati of Tampa Bay for letting me review this awesome MC20 for you guys. And just all around the car, the materials are honestly super nice, and there's a lot of like kind of diversification in materials here. Like I said, we have the carbon and the Alcantara on the steering wheel here. You have this really nice tight leather right there, and then we have, this is kind of like Alcantara, kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels a little bit different than the one under it. So we have like this little liney design, and then it flows into this Alcantara on the door here, but then you have your leather wrapped handle back here, and your seats have like two different materials on them too. Like you got some leather on the sides here, but then the inside is this nice Alcantara. But these seats don't feel very bolstery. Like I feel like if you were going around a tight corner, like you just kind of, you know, like they're not very huggy. I don't feel like these like push you in like some of the bolstery seats that I've been in. They're just more of like a bucket seat kind of deal. And then a cool little touch with the Notte edition. You have your little plaque right there telling you that you have something special here. And a few more things around the MC20. One, you have your visors here, but your driver doesn't get a little mirror. And it has this weird like little creased design that I've never seen before. I guess kind of to fit this like roof area better because it kind of like swoops in. But your passenger does have a mirror on their visor there. And then we have a really cool feature which I like. You have your regular mirror, right? Which doesn't do much for you. There's like the world's tiniest window back there. You absolutely cannot see behind you. Or you click this button and you get a little display so that you can actually see what's going on behind you. Super cool. We have our drive modes down here. You can just pop through these with a little half turn to get to the drive mode you want, and you can also set your suspension with those. And just a few things in the steering wheel area. Like I mentioned, it has this nice carbon fiber all around it, but there's just a few buttons in here. On this side, we have our cruise control going on and our front end lift button here. And on this side, we have our volume controls for our radio. This is how you put it into launch mode. This button is how you stop and start the car. Obviously, I like that it's blue. That's a little different. And then behind that, these look carbon fiber, right? But they're like aluminum or something. Like you can hear that. Like they're kind of like cold like metal, but they look carbon. So that's weird. And then behind that, we have like these kind of cheap like stalks back here, like a windshield wiper one. It's just like this basic plastic, and so is our like turning signal one. And listen to this turning signal. Like what? That sounds so goofy. One weird thing is when you turn on your turning signal and you want to turn it off, you kind of have to do like a half push up or down to like get it to turn off, or it's just gonna like stay on for a while because it doesn't do the clicky thing like normal turning signals do to go back up. And a few things to note in the floorboard area. One, your brake pedal has the little Maserati fork logo on it. That's pretty neat. And down here it says Maserati with your little silver plate down there. It just looks a little sporty. And storage, there is not much in this interior here. Because we have butterfly doors, there is no door storage at all, but you have a little wireless charger / storage area. You definitely can't fit a lot back there, maybe a phone or two. And in our visor here, we have this little thing where you can slide some papers or something really small. We have this teeny weeny little center console storage here. It's literally like as big as my fist. That's literally all. We have one cup holder behind me, and then we have this little shelf area behind the seats that you might be able to put something very, very small in. To get into your little tiny storage area back there, you have to undo your loop that your seat belt is in and then pull the seat forward with the little lever. And if you ever lose power with your butterfly doors and you can't press the mechanism to get out, there is a little emergency release loop right behind your head right here. And then we have our glove box right here, which is again very small. And this is one of the most basic infotainment systems I've ever seen, honestly. So we just have our climate here, which might not be so great when you're trying to just go down the road or you want to get fast and you just need to adjust your climate really quick. I wish they had a few little dials underneath here like the Audi R8 had or something like that, because you just have to fiddle along in the screen to try to, adjust your stuff. And that's just annoying. So other than that, we obviously just have a few more things on the side here, like navigation to our vehicle settings. There's a few display mode things. There's a driver profile that you can fill out. Some car stats if you want to see that. Other than that, it's just very basic. I guess easy to use. Maybe a little too easy. So, unfortunately, they're not allowing me to drive the MC20 today, as it is a brand new unit and I'm not buying the car. However, I did do some research on the drive and came to the conclusion that it just doesn't have that supercar feel like some of its other competitors do. Now, I will say, the car is very quick, but that's kind of where it ends. Now, Maserati came out with this car as an example to kind of revamp and make up for past mistakes within the brand. However, since then, they've came out with the gray cola or something. Now, for my 3 favorite features, one has to be the butterfly doors. I just love those doors on literally any car. It just makes everything better. 2 has to be the matte black. I'm a big fan of matte paint. I love it on anything. Once again, makes any car look way cooler. 3 has to be that all the vents are actually open and functioning. I'm glad they didn't cheap out in that department like some other kind of cars. For my Riley ranking, I just have to go a 6.5 on this. I'm not really a Maserati girl. It does look cool. It looks very supercar-y. I see the direction they were trying to go for, but for this price, you could just get a Ferrari or something actually supercar. You know what I mean? And if you thought this car was cool, you've got to go check out the others that I have reviewed. The Notte Coupe Notte. Hold on. What are they? Fenders or wheel wells? Because they are big. It gets bigger in the back. How do I explain that? First, oh, okay, hold on. Kind of pinched, short and sweet, little super. No, hang on. We're gonna check out why. Hold on. No, is 1 of 50 in the U.S. No, 1 of 50 made. There is a little button underneath here that you just press. You have to do the parking brake with it. And to get into this frunk here, you push to the left. It's not pushing to the left. I'm pushing. Oh, okay, there you go. It was a hard one.